What does Vayu Tattva look like inside the body?
Transportation of movement. Transportation of... No, go ahead. I don't know.
Respiration? Respiration.
Respiration, transportation, movement.
Prana.
Prana. Prana is what gives respiration in the body. Prana is what moves things through the body. So when Vayu goes into the body, it becomes prana. Outside of the body, it's Vayu. It's the wind moving. So when it enters into the body, that energy becomes prana. So the nakshatra, it's connected to the Vayu element, the air element. But the air element inside of us is the prana. So the nakshatra shows the prana. Now, how do we know where the prana is in someone's body? How do you control where the prana is in your body?
Meditation?
Breathing practices, pranayama. How else?
Emotions.
Mantra. Huh?
Emotions.
Emotions.
What you pay attention to mentally?
That's the key. What you pay attention to. Where your mind goes, so will your prana go.
Awareness.
Where your prana goes, so will your mind go. So, if you're thinking, if you're in an emotion where you're thinking mentally about love and caring and devotion to something, you get a warm sensation in your heart. The prana is going to your heart and making it warm. It's activating that heart center by thinking about devotion. At the same time, if someone is thinking about sexuality or sexual images, the energy goes to the sexual organs and turns them on. So whatever you're thinking about, that's where the prana goes in your body. So if you start meditating on your third eye, the prana is going to go up into the third eye center and start activating your higher awareness. So where your mind goes is where the prana is going. Where the prana is going is where the mind is going. There's a direct relationship. And this is what we see in the nakshatras. And this is how the nakshatras show us about the mind. Because they're showing us the direction the mind is going. And the direction the mind is going is showing the direction that the prana is going. Makes sense, right? Pretty simple. Now, when we look at a muhurta with the nakshatras, like let's say you want to get married. And so you want to get married on a nakshatra that's about tearing things down, destroying things, and working with chemicals? Or do you want to get married on a nakshatra that's about love and bliss and happiness? Which nakshatra do you want to get married on? It's going to show where the prana is going at that moment. It's pretty simple, right? We want to get, so when an event starts, that nakshatra is showing us where the prana at that moment, where the mind is focusing at that moment, the direction of the mind. If it's a very sexual nakshatra, the energy in the mind is going to be focused on a sexual area. If it's a very destructive nakshatra, the energy in the mind is going to be focused on breaking things and tearing things apart. You get married on a nakshatra, which is the energy of tearing things apart, and the birth is at that moment. The whole marriage will be about breaking things and tearing things apart, and eventually it'll tear apart the marriage. Where if you go on one that's about happiness and family and growth, the whole marriage is about happiness, growth. It's just as soon as you see your partner, all of a sudden you're thinking about happiness and growth. As soon as you see them, as soon as you think about the relationship, because you planted that relationship at the time where that's where the prana was going. And so that relationship is going to hold that prana. That's the type of prana that relationship is going to have. So when we pick a muhurta, we pick a muhurta that we want that type of prana to be present based on the nakshatra and the deity of that nakshatra. Now when we look at a natal chart, what's the nakshatra going to show us?
The mind of that person.
The mind of that person, where it's going. where its tendency to go is. And I like to say, it shows the color glasses the person's wearing. Because where your mind is at is kind of what you're interpreting the world through. If you're sitting in your third eye all the time, as your mind is in the third eye, somebody says something and you interpret the hidden spiritual meaning behind it. If you're always in your root chakra and somebody says something, you interpret how they're trying to get in your space through what they're saying. So wherever our mind is changing how we're interpreting the outside world. Right? We color the world by our own mind. And this is what we see based on the Nakṣatra. Now, when we look at the Lord of the Nakṣatra based on the Vimshotri Dasha. So who's your Nakṣatra, Luna? Which Nakṣatra are you born in?
Swati.
And who's the Lord of Swati?
Rahu.
Rahu. So when we look at Rahu in your chart, we can see the strength of your prana. Where's Rahu placed in your chart?
23 degrees Libra.
Yeah, but which house?
10 plus.
10th house.
So
So,
are we talking about the moon nakshatra?
mm-hmm.
Okay.
We look at the moon's nakshatra. It's called Janma nakshatra.
Done.
We see where that Lord is placed, and that's going to give us a general idea of what the situation of the person's pranas in their body is like. The strength of their pranas. The Lord of the Nakshatra showed the color and the directions of the pranas. But you can have, somebody can think about spiritual things, but they can do it on a very bad level, a weak level, or a very strong, exalted level. So there's where the energy is, and then there's how strong or weak it is. The Lord of the Nakshatra shows the strength. So what happens if the Lord of the Nakshatra is weak?
But the mind is weak?
Well, it
The
depends
prana
on.
is going to be weak. There won't be a strong thrust in a certain direction. Like they can't focus maybe or fulfill an intention.
So there'll be lack of focus. That's definitely true. What else?
They won't have a lot of energy or vitality when doing things.
There'll be a lack of vitality and energy based on imbalances of prana in the body. When the Lord of the Nakshatra is not well placed, there's energy blocks in the body that are causing ill health.
Now, how's that different than the Vara Lord?
That's why we're going deep into it to differentiate them.
Because the vitality.
The Vara Lord, it's showing whether your bones are strong. It's showing, are your muscles well formed? It's a very physical level of health.
Okay.
And it's so physical that it's only the 7 planets. No Rahu and Ketu are there. Where if we look at the nakshatras, how many lords of the nakshatras are there? How many planets do we use? We use all 9, so we also use Rahu and Ketu. So we're talking about a subtler level. We're talking about the flow of energy through the channels. So when the nakshatra lord is weak or not well placed, disease is based more at the level of subtle energy. This is where you want to go to somebody, the difference between going to a nutritionist and a massage therapist versus going to somebody who can see energy in the body and help you work through blockages and clear energy, or the difference between when you're going to be using mantras and pranayam versus using herbs. Now, when you get really good, you're using all those together to support each other. But where the predominance of the remedy is should be based upon where the predominance of the disease is based from. If it's based on the nakshatra lord being weak, then we gotta focus more primarily on the pranayam, the meditation, the energy work, and we'll also be giving them herbs to support the body while that's happening. If it's the Vara Lord, it's all about herbs and food and digestants. We'll also be giving them meditations and things like that to support. But what is the supporting factor and what is the primary medicine? And it's important for us to differentiate that. So because people If you could spend all day curing yourself and doing pranayama and eating right and taking all the herbs every 15 minutes that you need to, then it doesn't make a difference. But we only have so much time and so much energy to put into our remedies. And so we have to make sure that that we're hitting the primary root the most.
So does it matter what if the planet lord is benefic or malefic?
If it's malefic, it definitely makes it a little tougher. But only a little bit.
Being that mine is Rahu. then-
Being that it's Rahu, what are some of the qualities of Rahu when it comes to health and prana?
It messes things up.
So are the pranas always going to be in perfect balance? No, they're going to occasionally be getting disturbed, just by nature that it's Rahu. But because Rahu is well placed, they're basically strong. If it was Jupiter, they'd always be very well supported and protected. But if Jupiter was in a bad placement, they'd be weak. And so there'd be more help. So we have to take both factors into account.
Freedom.
Yes.
How do you see exactly how the pranas are disturbing in which part of the body? Is it all from Kala Chakra or something?
From Kala Chakra as well as from Drekana and D6, but this is the thing. We don't see what's disturbed based on the Pañcāṅga. We just see what is the quality of time that they're born in. Because if you look, every chart, there's energy blockages. But when is that energy blockage going to actually become a disease? And why, when you see two people that have their heart chakra not open, why does one die of a heart attack and the other one not have a heart attack? The time that they're born, the quality of time, will tell us whether those negative indications are getting activated or not. So all we do with the Pañcāṅga is we look. You see, if the Nakṣatra Lord is not well placed, we know that there's pranic disturbances. That means when we start looking at the chart, we got to start looking at pranic disturbances in the chart. If the Nakṣatra Lord is strong, then why even look at these, pranic disturbances? Unless they're incredibly huge and big and, standing out, it's not going to really get activated in this life.
Have you seen ever a connection with the parts of the body in the Nakṣatra Purusha?
I use much more just the Rashi chakra. Yeah.
Don't we need to look at more than just the placement of the Nakṣatra Lord, like the aspects, conjunction? Or
Yeah, everything. We do the strength analysis on that planet. And what is strength analysis? The degrees it's placed in, whether it's Digvala or not, whether it's exalted or debilitated, aspects, the lord of its sign, everything. And then each planet is a little different. Some planets are good in the 12th house, some planets die in the 12th house. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Venus is okay in the 12th. Sun in the 12th is... It's Marna Karkasthana. It's suffering there. And Venus is fine. It's the natural sign of its exaltation.
But
So-
a lot of things are taken into account. It's not just
And all those factors will be represented when we interpret what those factors are. Just we see her moon is in the 10th house. That has its results. Everything has its results.
So if Rahu is strong, well placed in the 10th.
Then her pranas are strong.
Doesn't
that means-
matter if it's Rahu.
That means her pranas are going to be flowing through her veins good. Because maybe the Agni breaks down the food, but whether you assimilate it is based on the prana. What's the prana that assimilates the food? Samana prana. Right? Yeah. And so that samana prana is going to show that the channels that are sucking the prana from the food are open and they're flowing and it's coming through. And so in this way, it's showing that by her Nakṣatra Lord being strong, it's showing that the prana channels and the flow of prana is very strong in the body. If there's a small blockage indicated by a planet in the chart, it's strong enough that it'll move through that blockage. If there's a blockage and the Nakṣatra Lord is weak, then it can't get through that blockage in the same way, and that blockage is going to start showing up.
If there's a spirit or ghost possession, will the prana affected?
Of course. The ghosts and pretas and spirits, they work primarily on the pranic level because they don't have a physical body.
They want prana.
They want
That's why
prana.
they're sucking on
They are the pranic level. So they're primarily affecting us at the pranic level. So generally you don't see, a person doesn't get a broken arm because of a spirit. They don't get a growth on their body because of the spirit. They don't, it doesn't affect you, but it'll affect their prana. The people will have low energy, or their mind will be disturbed, or they'll have restless sleep, or things of this nature based on that. Because it's Rahu and Ketu. They're the subtle level. They're working on the pranic level, not the Vara level. The 7 days of the week, there's no Rahu and Ketu. But in the nakshatras, there's all 9 planets. Okay? So in this way, it's all logic. Okay. Let's see. So on page 6, it talks about the lords of each nakshatra. Then